I never expected my own family to turn against me. My parents had always been strict but fair, and my younger sister, Claire, was spoiled but manageable. At least that's what I thought until the day they told me I had to leave. It all started on a Sunday afternoon. I had just returned from work, exhausted, ready to relax in my small but cozy house. The house my grandmother left me in her will. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Family meeting. Come home now. Something about the tone unsettled me. My parents never called meetings unless something serious was happening. My stomach twisted as I drove to their house. The moment I stepped inside, the atmosphere felt off. My mother, father, and Claire sat in the living room, their expressions unreadable. My father cleared his throat. "We've made a decision," he said, his voice firm. "We think it's best for you to move out of the house." I blinked, sure I misheard him. "What?" My mother folded her hands in her lap. "Claire needs a place to stay. She's getting married soon, and that house would be perfect for her and her husband." I laughed, expecting this to be some kind of twisted joke, but their faces remained serious. "You want me to give up my own house?" I asked, my voice rising. "The house Grandma left me? She would have wanted it this way," my mother insisted. "Claire needs it more than you do." Claire sat there smirking, not even pretending to be embarrassed. "It's just logical," she said. "You don't have a family. You don't need that much space." My hands clenched into fists. "I live there. It's my home." "Don't be selfish," my father snapped. "We've already made arrangements. You'll stay somewhere else." "Where?" I demanded. Silence. And then my mother said, "We found you a small apartment across town. You can move in next week." Something cold and sharp twisted inside me. They had planned this behind my back. I should have seen it coming, but I hadn't. And now I was in for the fight of my life. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. My own family, my blood, had decided my fate without even asking me. The betrayal stung, but I wasn't about to roll over and let them take my home. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "No. I'm not leaving," Claire scoffed. "Come on, don't be dramatic. It's just a house." "Then why don't you find another one?" I shot back. "Why does it have to be mine?" "Because it makes sense," my mother said, as if I were too stupid to understand. "You're single. Claire is starting a family. The house is wasted on you." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean my house? The one Grandma left to me?" "That was a mistake," my father said bluntly. "She didn't think it through." Something inside me snapped. "You're unbelievable. Don't raise your voice at us," my mother warned. "We're trying to do what's best for the family." "You mean what's best for Claire?" I turned to my sister, who was still sitting there with that smug little smirk. "You're okay with this? Stealing my house?" "It's not stealing if Mom and Dad say it's fair," she said with a shrug. I clenched my fists. "That house isn't theirs to give away." "Well, actually..." My mother's voice trailed off as she exchanged a glance with my father. A cold chill ran through me. "What?" My father sighed. "We spoke to a lawyer. If you refuse, we have ways to contest the will." My breath caught in my throat. "You'd sue me?" "If we have to," he said, completely unfazed. "We don't want to, of course. That's why we're offering the apartment." This wasn't just about favoritism anymore. They were actually prepared to drag me to court over my own inheritance. I stood up, my heart pounding. "If you think I'm just going to hand over my house, you don't know me at all." My mother sighed, shaking her head. "We hoped you'd be reasonable, but you're making this difficult." I glared at all of them. "If you try to take my house from me, you'll regret it." Then I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. As I drove back home, my mind raced. I needed to prepare for battle. But what I didn't know was that the worst had yet to come. I barely slept that night. My mind was in overdrive, replaying the conversation with my family. The sheer audacity of it all made my blood boil. They actually thought they could take what was mine over my dead body. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of someone knocking, no, pounding, on my front door. I groggily pulled myself out of bed and checked the time.
6:15 Uhr morgens.
Who the hell? I swung the door open, and there stood Claire, her arms crossed, tapping her foot impatiently. Behind her, a moving van idled at the curb. "Morning, big brother," she said, her smirk even wider than yesterday. "Hope you're packed." For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I saw two men stepping out of the moving truck. They were carrying empty boxes. I took a step forward, my voice like ice. "What are you doing?" "Helping you move," Claire said sweetly. "We figured you'd take forever, so we're speeding things up." I almost laughed at the insanity of it. "You're insane if you think I'm letting you step inside my house." Claire rolled her eyes and pulled out her phone. "Mom and Dad said you'd be difficult." She tapped on the screen, then turned it to show me. A text message from my mother read, "If he refuses, call the locksmith." A new kind of rage surged through me. "You seriously brought a locksmith?" "Of course," she said. "If you don't leave, we'll change the locks while you're at work. Save us all the trouble and just hand over the keys now." The nerve. The sheer nerve. I gritted my teeth and forced a smile. "All right." Claire blinked. "Wait, what?" I said all right. I stepped back inside and grabbed my keys from the table. I walked back to the door and held them up. "You want them?" She reached for them, but just before she could touch them, I threw them as hard as I could, straight into the storm drain at the end of the street. Claire's face twisted in fury. "You idiot! What did you just do?" I shrugged. "Oops. You! She was practically vibrating with rage. "Fine. I don't need your stupid keys. The locksmith will be here any minute." I smirked. "Good luck explaining to the police why you're trying to break into my house." Her face paled slightly. "You wouldn't." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. "Want to find out?" Claire's smirk finally dropped. She shot a glare at me, then at the moving guys. "Get back in the truck," she snapped. "We're leaving." The truck roared to life and pulled away. Claire lingered a moment longer, her jaw clenched. "This isn't over." I gave her a lazy wave. "Oh, I'm counting on it." As she stormed away, I knew I had just bought myself time. But this was only the first attack. And something told me my family wasn't going to back down so easily. After Claire's failed stunt, I thought I'd bought myself some breathing room. I was wrong. 2 days later, I came home from work to find a for sale sign planted in my front yard. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs as I marched up to it, gripping the wooden post. The sign wasn't some prank. It was real, professionally printed, and beneath the big, bold letters, there was a phone number for a local real estate agency. Ripping the sign from the ground, I stormed inside and grabbed my phone. My fingers trembled with rage as I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. "Hello, dear. What the hell is this?" I snapped, holding the phone up as if she could see me waving the sign around. There was a long pause. Then, in a maddeningly calm voice, she said, "Oh, I see you found the sign." "Yeah, I found it. What I don't understand is why it's in my yard." "Well," she said, her tone smooth, "since you refuse to be reasonable, we've taken matters into our own hands. We've already spoken to a realtor, and we're listing the house." I nearly dropped the phone. "You'll sell my house?" "We'll get a fair price," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "More than enough to buy you a nice little apartment and help Claire start her future." I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. "You can't sell my house. It's mine. My name is on the deed." "Oh, honey," she sighed. "Did you even check?" Something about the way she said it sent a cold chill down my spine. I opened my laptop, logging into the county property records. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I pulled up my address. There, under ownership records, my name was no longer the only one listed. My mother sighed dramatically. "Your grandmother left the house to you, yes? But the deed wasn't officially transferred before she passed. There were complications in the paperwork. And as her next of kin, we had a claim." I felt sick. "You forged something, didn't you?" Now, no need for accusations," she said smoothly. The point is, we have legal authority to sell. And we are selling. I was so angry I could barely breathe. You're going to regret this. We'll see, she said cheerfully. Oh, and don't bother changing the locks again. The realtor already has a set of keys. The call ended, leaving me standing in my own house, gripping the phone like it was the only thing holding me together. I didn't sleep that night. My mother's words kept replaying in my head. The realtor already has a set of keys. That meant my house, the place I fought so hard to protect, was no longer just mine. I needed a plan. First, I called a lawyer, but getting a consultation would take time, and I knew my family wasn't going to wait. I had to act now. The next morning, I took the day off work and went straight to the county clerk's office. I requested every document related to my grandmother's will and my house. The clerk, a kind older woman, squinted at her screen. She hesitated. Well, it looks like a transfer request was processed just last week. She clicked a few more times. It seems the property was partially reassigned. Your parents have claimed joint ownership under inheritance rights. That's not possible. The house was left to me. She sighed. I'd suggest speaking to a lawyer immediately. There's something suspicious about this. I thanked her and left, my mind spinning. I knew my family was ruthless, but to tamper with property records? They had no shame. I drove back home, ready to start locking everything down. But the moment I pulled into my driveway, a car I didn't recognize was parked out front. My front door was open. Someone was inside. I stormed in, my heart pounding. Hello! A man in a suit stood in my living room, flipping through a folder. He looked up, completely unfazed. Ah, you must be the current occupant. I stared at him. Who the hell are you? He smiled like this was a friendly visit. Daniel Vaughn. I'm the realtor managing the sale of this property. Rage exploded inside me. This house isn't for sale. He raised an eyebrow. Well, according to the documents, it is. I took a step closer. Get out. He held up a hand. Look, I'm just doing my job. Your parents hired me. I already have several interested buyers. I didn't let him finish. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Whoa, he said, taking a step back. Is that really necessary? Yeah, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Because last time I checked, breaking and entering is a crime. It's not. Do you have my permission to be here? Well, technically. Do you have my permission? His mouth snapped shut. That's what I thought, I said, my voice ice cold. Get out of my house before the cops get here. He grabbed his folder and practically ran out the door. I stood there, shaking, listening to the sound of his car peeling away. The moment the realtor fled, I locked my doors, double-checked my windows, and sat down to breathe. My family had officially crossed the line. This wasn't just about favoritism anymore. They were trying to erase me. I needed backup. I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, Jake. He picked up on the first ring. What's up? I need a lawyer. A damn good one. There was a brief silence. What the hell did you do? It's not me, I growled. It's my parents. They're trying to steal my house. I gave him a quick rundown of everything. Claire's attempted move-in, the fraudulent deed change, the realtor breaking into my home. By the time I finished, Jake was cursing under his breath. Okay, I know a guy, he said. He's expensive, but he doesn't lose. I'll text you his info. Thanks, man. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Ryan Cole, a sharp-eyed attorney with a reputation for tearing people apart in court. You're saying your family altered the deed without your consent? He asked, flipping through the documents I brought. I nodded. I don't know how they did it, but the clerk at the records office said something looked off. Ryan smirked. Then that's our way in. What do you mean? He leaned back. If the transfer was fraudulent, we can challenge it. If we prove misconduct, we can sue them for damages and press charges. I like this guy already. What do we do first? We hit them with a cease and desist order immediately. That'll stop them from selling the house while we investigate. He pulled out some paperwork. And if I find proof of fraud, we go nuclear. I exhaled, relief washing over me. For the first time in days, I felt like I had a fighting chance. But just as I was about to shake Ryan's hand, my phone buzzed. It was an email from the real estate agency. Subject: urgent notice regarding property sale. I opened it and my blood ran cold. Dear homeowner, we regret to inform you that your property is now under contract. The sale is expected to be finalized within the next 48 hours. They had already found a buyer. I looked up at Ryan, my grip tightening on my phone. They're trying to sell my house out from under me. His smirk widened. Then let's burn them to the ground. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. 48 hours. My house was slipping through my fingers, and my family was behind it all. Ryan took one look at my face and nodded. We don't have time to play nice. I'll file an injunction first thing in the morning. But you, he pointed at me, you need to stall them. I blinked. How the hell am I supposed to do that? He smirked. Get creative. I left his office with a new sense of urgency. If my family wanted a war, they were about to get one. That night, I sat in my car outside my parents' house, staring at the lights glowing from the windows. Inside, they were probably toasting their victory, already planning how to redecorate my home for Claire. I dialed Claire's number. She answered on the second ring. Oh, what do you want? I forced a shaky breath, adding a hint of panic to my voice. Claire, we need to talk. It's about the house. She sighed dramatically. If this is another pathetic attempt to change our minds. No, I cut in. It's about the buyer. I found something bad. There was silence. Then, cautiously, what are you talking about? I swallowed. I looked into the buyer your realtor found. Claire, they're scammers. They have lawsuits against them for fraudulent purchases. If this goes through, you're going to lose everything. That got her attention. What? I pressed on. I need to meet with you and Mom and Dad. Tonight. Before it's too late. Fine. Be here in 30 minutes. Hook, line, and sinker. I drove off, my heart racing. Now I had bought myself some time. While Claire panicked over a fake scam, I made my real move. I called the real estate agency. A woman answered. Hello, Prime Realty. How can I help you? I put on my calmest, most professional voice. Hi, this is John Richards from the County Zoning Board. We received a report of a title dispute regarding the property. Before the sale can proceed, we need to conduct a full review. Oh, the woman hesitated. I wasn't aware of any disputes. It's urgent, I said. If the sale is finalized under contested ownership, the buyer can sue your agency for damages. I heard her typing frantically. Then, with a nervous chuckle, let me speak with my supervisor. I grinned. That should stall them for at least a day. By the time I arrived at my parents' house, Claire was pacing in the living room, her face pale. You better not be lying, she hissed. Mom's calling the realtor right now. I gave her my best concerned brother look. I wouldn't joke about this. Just then, my mother walked in, her face stormy. The realtor says the sale is on hold. I gasped. So, I was right. Claire's eyes widened in panic. Oh my God. What if the buyer is a scammer? My mother's expression hardened. We need to confirm everything before moving forward. I fought the urge to smirk. Checkmate.